Erica Starhunter. I am going to present my final presentation on my doctoral digital portfolio. The title of my project is A Mixed Methods Investigation of Equity-Centered High School Graduation and Entrance into Post-Secondary Program Strategies Among Urban Public High School Educators. In this presentation, I'm going to provide a summary of the project, where I will also do a walkthrough of the website I created for the project, for my research. I will go over the research design methodology, and then I will also discuss the new knowledge base I gained from this project and how I believe my research can be transformative. So starting off with a summary of the project, the main purpose of this project was to increase equity within urban education. And so let me show you. Don't know if it is going to share, but let me try to get to the website. Okay, I believe we are here now. Okay, so this is the homepage of my website. Starts off with a picture of Cleveland High School, and what I'm wanting to convey with this as my overall theme is kind of like a new day in urban education. This is a little bit about me and my motivations in doing research on equity within urban education. The timeline and memberships. So this is a timeline of my professional and academics and my various professional organizations that I belong to. My research interests, and a link to my ResearchGate. On this page, I have a number of projects that I have completed throughout the EDD program that focus on social justice. Okay, so now we come to the landing page for my project. And the way I set it up was kind of like a lesson that, a teacher would give to their class. And so I have, okay, class, let's get started. So there's links in here, that you can click on to kind of give you an overview of each section. So then I broke it down into the objective for this project, and then the gradual release model of I do, we do, you do, and then the exit ticket. Okay, so contextualization for this project, I focused on what is equity and brought it back into not just equity within urban education, but equity within our society. I looked at some of the Supreme Court decisions around education that are not what I would consider equitable. And so just to kind of give a background of like where we are as a society as we see equity within education. So I discuss those court cases, and then I talk about a Gallup poll or survey that Americans responded to and said that they definitely see that there are issues in education, and there's a strong desire to improve our education system. So the problem is that there's inequity within urban education. And so I wanted to find a set of factors that once you apply them to the system, it would increase the overall equity, and more students, urban students, would be graduating and entering post-secondary programs. I believe the significance is that I provide my own experience. So I have over 20 years of experience in urban education. I have a strengths-based perspective on urban students and urban education. I believe that the equity factors that I found in my research are going to increase graduation rates and entrance into post-secondary programs. And fourth, that once that you have more urban students graduating and going into post-secondary programs and entering, the job force and careers that they're passionate about, it will increase the overall equity in our society. So here's a definition of terms on how I, kind of define equity within the system. Okay, that takes us to theoretical framework. I used critical race theory as the backbone for my research. The started off with positionality and intersectionality. So, my personal experience as an urban educator, and in conjunction with my own life experiences, I am a gay woman who grew up in a suburban family who was, very much lower middle class, living in kind of an upper middle class community. And so that juxtaposition and all those different factors, I feel, led me to have not a knowledge of what it's like to grow up as an urban student, but it gave me the ability to empathize with urban students and what they go through, because I have gone through similar experiences in my life. So the purpose of CRT in my research, I want to increase people's overall knowledge of CRT and how it can be applied to urban education. I go through the pros and cons of using critical race theory in my research. But this is the main thing I want to talk about, is the tenets of CRT and the goals of my DDP. So I wanted to take the tenets of CRT, which racism is ordinary, interest convergence, social construction of race, storytelling and counter storytelling. Whites have been the ones to benefit from civil rights legislation, and then connect it to my project. So inequity exists in urban education. Urban educators need voice in equity discussion, dismantle deficit-based perspectives in urban education research, storytelling and counter storytelling. So giving my own experiences and the experiences of other urban educators in my research to make the point of the inequity and how we can stop that. And whites are still trying to profit off urban education. So I talk about some of the packaged programs that have come through education systems. So my 3 research questions were: what factors are urban education systems using to create equity within their system? What factors lead to increased graduation rates and entry into post-secondary education? What factors have little impact on graduation rates and entry into post-secondary education? So first off, I asked educators, urban educators, what equity factors do you see being used in your schools? So I went through a list of researched equity factors that researchers said would increase graduation rates or entrance into post-secondary. And I asked urban educators, do you see these being used in your schools? Then I asked, do you think that this factor is effective, or do you think it's ineffective? So The limitations, I only used publicly sourced information. I could have used thousands of factors. I only used the ones that I saw most often in the research. And then also, I had a small sample size. Okay. Assumptions is that equity factors could positively impact graduation rates, and entry into post-secondary education. Strength-based perspective would yield results that have a positive impact on urban education, and the biases of the researcher will have a positive impact on the research conducted. What I see as the current gap, number one, we see that, in the state of Missouri, 92% is our graduation rate for the state of Missouri, but St. Louis Public Schools, which is, one of the main uh, urban education systems in the state of Missouri, has a graduation rate of 73%. So that gap there is evidence that there is a problem. There is a gap in the equity in the two systems. And I believe that the bias of previous researchers has impacted that gap, and because their factors have not led to increased graduation rates. Oh, whoops. Okay, so then I went to the review of literature. I broke this down into different time periods because I wanted to show the impact of public policy on education. So broke it down into, different eras. So we have the 1990s, we have the early 2000s with No Child Left Behind, which had a huge impact on urban education. We have pre-pandemic and Obama era education reform, which honestly did not change very much of the overall equity in the system. And post-pandemic 2020, so, research being done kind of during the pandemic or right after the pandemic, and then current research being done today. And I think with the pandemic and increased ESSER funds for technology, we have seen a big change in urban education. Okay, methodology. So I used a mixed methods research paradigm. So I used both qualitative and quantitative research. I developed a survey that used a Likert scale for effectiveness and ineffectiveness, but I also included open response questions for urban educators to give their opinions about the different factors that would increase overall equity within their schools. I based my research or my survey on a survey that had already been created called Future and Career Plans Before High School Graduation. And then I started collecting data. The data was collected using various social media sites. Also, some of my professional organizations that I belong to, I posted my survey on those open forum sites. And then I ended up reaching out to as many of my colleagues as I could. And when I went to professional developments, talked to them there, and, just worked really hard to get people to respond to my survey, essentially. So I had 32 responses, 3 principals, 5 assistant principals, 7 school counselors, 5 family community specialists, 0 graduation coaches, 3 social workers, and 9 teachers. So then I analyzed the data using JASP software and NVivo software For the quantitative analysis, I used JASP, and here is a list of the different tables that I created. Here are the list of different equity factors that I found within the research. Did reliability and validity tests. I also did qualitative analysis, and I used NVivo for this. And you can see the tables I've created using NVivo and also Microsoft Forms. So the results, I broke them down into my different research question. Question 1, what factors are urban education systems using to create equity within their system? So strategies that urban educators see being used and to increase graduation, restorative practices. This is the concept that exclusionary discipline like in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension are inequitable because they keep students out of the classroom and out of the academic environment. Online credit recovery. This is a system where students who are, falling behind in some of their credits can go to an online program and take those courses and make up that coursework. Attendance interventions. So in this one, they would target like ninth graders specifically, but it could work with any of the grade levels, but having social workers and maybe school counselors, looking into attendance rates and seeing, specifically for each student, what might be the barriers for them to come to school. Mentorship is another one. This is one where we have a faculty member who is working with a student one-on-one to help them to get to graduation. And then also one of the things I noticed in a lot of the open answer part of the survey is they talked a lot about the school counselor and wraparound services. So the school counselors work one-on-one with students to help them, get the credits they need, the courses they need. And they also talked about wraparound services. So, for example, this might be someone in the building who is making sure that, students are have glasses, have, access to a dentist. Some schools have a pantry where families can access food. They provide school supplies. So just a variety of different wraparound services. Some of the post-secondary equity factors, visiting local businesses. So for this factor, students would, leave the school, go out into the community, visit different organizations and learn about, what it's like to be a professional in, this career. So like an architecture firm. There are also packaged programs that help or that are intended to help students kind of keep on track. There's all different kinds of programs that schools use to help graduation rates. Industry certifications. So this is when a student is in school, they can gain an industry certification so that when they graduate, they can go right to work essentially, or go right into like a trade program. Early college, high schools. This is a program where high school students are already taking college courses. And then from the open answer questions on the survey, they mentioned school counselors, again, online career exploration, and college visits as being other factors that would lead to the overall equity of the lead to equity or equity factors. So then I looked at effectiveness and ineffectiveness of these different programs. And so in the survey, they responded and came up with these average ratings from the Likert scale for the different programs. So we can see trust between administrators and teachers is number one, online school and credit recovery, industry certifications, attendance intervention, social capital, social networks, mentorship, early college, and restorative practices are the most effective. The most ineffective, they said, graduation packaged programs, school within a school, academic support packaged programs, transcendental meditation, freshman academies, and debate club. So then I discuss, these factors and, why they might be considered effective and ineffective as an urban educator. Like, what do I see kind of interpreting the results from the urban educators that answered the survey? And then same thing with the question 3. This is the ineffective strategies. So same thing, looking at the results and saying kind of what the reasons might be for why the urban educators, gave these ratings. Okay, so discussion and impact. So what I kind of feel are the most effective and kind of easy to implement. Well, not easy to implement, but like factors that I think would be the most effective in urban education based on my own experiences and results from the survey. So I talked about the trust between administration and teachers. And so that relationship between the principal and the principal's vision for the school, and that being able to implement that vision takes trust between administration and teachers. And so how do you build that trust? The second one was online credit recovery. I talked a lot about the fact that our students have lives that may look very different from people at, like middle class or upper class socioeconomic status, because they may be pulled out of school for lots of different reasons. Could be family doesn't have transportation, the buses aren't running, they can't come to school, so it's an attendance concern. They might need to help out to help the family out financially. And so having the ability to quickly go back and forth between, in-person and virtual school to keep up with their education, I think would be incredibly valuable to urban students. Restorative practices, I think, is also not rated as one of the most effective strategies. It was one of them, but at the bottom. But I personally think, from my own experiences, restorative practices would be a really excellent way to increase equity, because it doesn't alienate students. It tries to bring students back into the school community and decreases the time that students are outside of the classroom. So through restorative practices, they are welcomed back into the school community. All right, I did a podcast with a friend of mine, and we talked about these results. It was a very excellent conversation. And then recommendations for further research. I, feel like this research is a starting off point, and other urban educators can look at the factors that I found, and they can do more research on it and bring that discussion into, the academic discussion. And then hopefully we'll have more equity within our system. Okay, I want to stop sharing that and now share my PowerPoint again. Okay. All right. I am coming towards the end. So we will go back to The knowledge. So what I think I have gained, my own personal knowledge and the knowledge that I think I'm adding to academic research. I have gained an expertise in urban education, research done on urban education, having read so many different studies. I feel like I can safely say I'm now getting towards expert on it. Ability to design and carry out a research project, increased knowledge of various technologies, just the sheer amount of different technologies that were necessary for this project. I needed to learn them all and be able to use them effectively. So I feel like I love learning new technology. So I really am excited about that. I have increased my academic writing skills. At the beginning of this program, the EDD program, I wrote in a very kind of academically formal way. And I decided for this project, I wanted to make it more personal, the tone more personal. So I used I used a lot more of my personal stories because of my CRT framework. And so the idea is that through that kind of more informal, personal way of writing, I will have more connection with my reader, and they'll have more of a connection to my research. I've increased my network with other researchers, not just through my cohort, but also through ResearchGate. I've increased my network of urban educators through all the different contacts I had to make in order to complete the survey. I have more confidence in my professionalism in the field of education. I have a more global perspective on urban education. I try to always incorporate at least information from one other country into specifically Mexico. I see a lot of correlations between Mexico and the United States and our development as countries and our education systems. And so I try to always make that connection throughout the program. And it has had an impact on my knowledge as a whole and how I see urban education. I have a strengths-based perspective that I think is adding to the overall uh, concept of urban education research, and hopefully that will shift the way people write about urban education. Um, I have a research list of factors that I think can add to the equity of urban education. And I believe that I have given a voice to urban educators, which is one of the main things I wanted to do in this project. So how is it transformative? Kind of goes back to my knowledge, my new knowledge base. I have increased the factors within urban education, a strengths-based perspective, listening to the voices of urban education educators. I added to the discussion of CRT, and hopefully I will increase the equity within our society. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation and following along. Thank you.